יאמר השם שבתי לירושלים ברחמים בייסי יבונה בו כה יאמר השם שבתי לירושלים ברחמים בייסי יבונה בו.
Hello everyone. As we're about to get into Shabbos by the 3 weeks, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about something that I just don't understand. And I'm going to leave it as an open question, and I look forward to hearing your responses to it. And that is how we actually facilitate the Tefilla l'shlom ha'medina, the prayer for the welfare of the state. It's well known that we have an obligation that is dictated by our sages to pray for the welfare of the state we're in, and specifically for the leaders of the state that we're living in. Indeed, the Mishnah in Masechet Avot, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Bet, says, Haveh mitpalel b'shloma shel malchut, always daven for the welfare of the leadership of your country, she'il malei mora'ah, because without its laws, Ishit re'eu chayim balahu, everyone will swallow each other. Namely, we'll go through red lights, we won't have garbage collected, there will be totally anarchy. And indeed, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah goes ahead and validates this and says, it's just like these fish in the sea. And I quote the Gemara verbatim. Just like in the sea, one bigger fish will always go ahead and swallow the smaller fish. So too in life, if you're living in a country and you don't have laws, namely you don't have a leadership, ultimately you're going ahead and people will swallow each other. People will just kill each other. And from this perspective, the Gemara does say, keep that Mishnah in Masechet Avot, Haveh mitpalel b'shlom hashel malchut. And that's what we do. As the Abu Draham in his book on Tefilla says, that right after Kriyas HaTorah on Shabbos, Nahagu levarech et hamelech ulitpalel laHashem sheya'azreu v'ya'amtzeu al oivav. That indeed, after Kriyas HaTorah, we bless the king, Yitpalel Hashem, and daven to Hashem, Sheyazreu v'yamtzeu al oivav, that he should be successful against all his enemies. And indeed, the Kolbo validates this as well and says, V'shabbat Shachris, Nohagim lomar hachar haftorah mishaberach, v'yesh mekomot shebevachim hamelech v'akacha kacha kahal. Indeed, after the Haftorah, we go ahead and we bless the congregation and we bless the country. Now, this obviously goes to the second power when you're talking about the state of Israel. We're not just talking about any country, we're talking about our beloved state of Israel that has a Jewish government. So obviously, we want to daven for its welfare, not to mention the welfare of the soldiers and all the security forces that are now going ahead and at this very moment are securing our security, and of course, davening for the hostages that unfortunately are not back in the loving bosom of the Jewish people. From this perspective, there's one thing I just don't understand, and that is how come it's done in a way that it's done. Namely, instead of everyone davening l'shloma shel malchut, everyone davening for the success, for the divine providence and everything else we daven for in that beautiful Tefillah l'shlom ha'medina, only the Chazan says it. There's an old joke in Israel that says as follows: when will Tefillah l'shlom ha'medina, when will the prayer for the welfare of the state really become a prayer? When it will really become part of davening? When people start talking during Tefillah l'shlom ha'medina, then we know it's part of davening. But until that happens, it's sort of a part. You know, everyone stops, the Chazan says it, sometimes everyone sings Avinu, and whatnot. I personally just don't understand it. After all, our Ashkenazic minhag is that we say every word of davening, and the Chazan is sort of a traffic light. He tells us when to stop and when to go. He says the beginning and the end. And allow me to give one live example that we do every night at Ma'ariv. The Shulchan Aruch paskins regarding Ma'ariv that Birkat Yotzer Va'arvit, Omerim Shliach Tzibor Menachat. You're supposed to say the brachot, the blessings before and after Shema, nicely with the Chazan. So if you go to a Sephardic shul, that's the way it's done. The Sephardic Chazan says every word out loud, and people say it quietly with him. Comes along the Mishnah Berurah, who's an Ashkenazi, and says, Yom, and today, Ein noagim lizaher, lomar dafka benachat. Today everyone says it at their own pace. And he tells you to look in his Bir Halacha. And in his Bir Halacha, indeed, he says that once upon a moon, the Chazan was the only guy with a sitter, And because he was the only guy with the siddur and only guy with the appropriate words, and you know, let's say, the chazan would say it, you would listen, you would say amen. We have an ironclad rule called shomea ke'oneh, namely, if you hear it, it's like you said it, and therefore, the chazan said every word out loud, and you said amen, good enough. Or you were fulfilling your obligation via the chazan. But, says the Biur Halacha, Ma she'ein kein kahayom, that's not the case today. Shenahuk shekol echad mevarech la'atzmo birkat kriyat shema. Today, indeed, everyone says their own birkat kriyat shema. You go to any shul for any ma'ariv, be it during the week or Shabbos, everybody is saying the kriyat shema blessings on their own. The chazan's a stoplight, tells you when to stop, when to go. So we all say the same bracha at the same time, but we're not saying it word for word, letter for letter, with the chazan. From this perspective, I really just don't understand. If that's what we do with the blessings before and after the Shema, how come with Tefillah l'Shlom HaMedina, with the prayer for the welfare of the state, and the soldiers, and the hostages, we go ahead and have one chazan say it only? We should all be saying it. We should all be davening for the welfare of the state, the welfare of the chayalim, and the welfare of the hostages. Indeed, this is not just there. Comes along the Magen Avraham, and the whole function of a chazan changed today, simply because, and I quote his words, indeed, who could be a chazan, who can't be a chazan? That was dependent on a time where the chazan really fulfilled the obligation for everyone. But today, says the Magen Avraham, that is not the case. Shekulam bekiyin, everyone knows how to read. Rak hashatz, the piyutim, the shatz leads us in the piyutim that we say on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and other such occasions. He leads the singing in the kedusha. But quite frankly, we all daven on our own. So that indeed comes along the Aruch HaShulchan and says that today a chazan is not someone that indeed fulfills the obligation for us, except for Chazarat Hashatze. Rather, kol ha'am yitpalel kol echad bifnei atzmo, ve'en tzarich shem yotziu otanu yedei chovatenu. So that's the case. I really want to understand how come when it comes to something so important to us, the state of Israel, the soldiers that are fighting for our very existence, not to mention the actual hostages that are not back home, only the chazan says it. So once upon a moon, maybe we didn't want to say Tefillah l'Shlom HaMedina. It's only because the Tsar sent in his troops to make sure we were saying it. But today we want to say it. We want to say it in many countries. If I can quote from the Masoret Moshe of Rav Moshe Feinstein, this is not his words, but rather what his grandson said in his name. He basically said about Tefillah l'Shlom HaMedina in America, not even in Israel. Kan ba'Amerika, lo tzrichim leitpalel dafka mitzad ha'gzeirat ha'katuf. It's not that the country makes you do it, but rather, pashut, mitzad ha'seicha v'ha'metziut. Just look at the reality. Just have a brain on your head, says Rav Moshe. Shezo medina, shetova la'Yehudim. It's a good country for the Jews, and therefore you should daven for its welfare. So how come with every other davening, Havarachamim, Ashrei, Psukei de Zimra, Birkot Kriyat Shema, everyone says it. But when it comes to Tefillah l'Shlom HaMedina, when it comes to the welfare of the state, the welfare of the chayalim, and the welfare of the hostages, only the chazan says it. In my humble opinion, this does not give more kavod, more honor to the prayer. It actually demotes it. In the eyes of the people, this is not really a prayer because only the chazan says it. And therefore I believe that the best thing to do is that everyone should say it. If you want the chazan to say every word out loud and everyone says it with him, like a Sephardic shul, azoi. That way, we are making it into a true tefillah. We're making it into a true prayer. Not a part from davening, but a part of davening.